3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Forest podcast, a podcast from three Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 2, episode 22. Today, we have an awesome guest joining us. We have Brandon from Talking Bay 94. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, y'all. This is so exciting.
Welcome. And like we said before, before starting recording, congratulations on your wedding. That's a big deal. I know you were off for a while, so big congrats on that. Very big milestone, right?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I convinced her to let us have lightsabers at the end, and then we also played the throne room as we exited.
Awesome.
I got my little Star Wars tidbit in there, so it was great.
So I mean, this wasn't going to be part of the this wasn't going to be part of the questionnaire, but now I definitely have to ask. So was she into Star Wars before this? Because she said convinced. I don't know if how tough the conversation was.
She always likes to say that she was into Star Wars before she met me, and like had Star Wars t-shirts and liked the movies, and then she met me and she was like, oh, I guess I'm not into Star Wars. But yeah, she really does like Star Wars, and with Mandalorian especially. She's used to it now, 2 seasons in, but she's game to wake up at 7 a.m. or whatever it was to wake up to not let me get the spoilers. So she's a very good sport about everything, and like Star Wars, she did. The reason I say convince is not because she was like, no, you can't have it. The reason was the only other thing that I was like, this would be cool, was to like call up the 501st or Rebel Legion or whatever and get one of the R2D2 operaters to ride around R2D2 with drinks at cocktail hour, like in Jedi. That's all I wanted.
Wow.
So that's a free wedding idea for anyone listening. They can take that because like I'm not gonna be able to use that.
That is a very, very good one. Well, you can do it like, I don't know, at a 25th anniversary wedding, get married again and just do it then. I'm sure the technology will get cheaper then, so it'll be more accessible to have a R2 server droid.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
And congratulations on being able to kind of get those the throne room in there, because that is one of the best ideas ever. So, as most people that listen to our podcast know, but when we have a guest, we always like to kind of do a little introduction, a little interview portion, Q&A with them. So obviously we're going to do that with you now. First, we start from the general, right, to the specific. So first, we're going to start with kind of getting to know you, for the people that don't know who you are personally or Talking Bay 94. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into some of the more specific Talking Bay 94 questions.
Love it. Yeah. My name is Brandon. I've been a Star Wars fan forever, just like all of us. And I work in film and movies, and Talking Bay 94 is my podcast where I interview the cast and crew of Star Wars. So I've loved Star Wars forever, and this is just kind of it's very selfish because I just have a great time getting to talk to these people that I grew up idolizing, and then I just kind of put it on the internet, and then some people listen to it, and that's who I am.
Perfect. Well, you mentioned that though that you worked in film before. What's your experience there working with film?
Yeah, it's kind of it's been a good like cycle for me because my professional job is marketing and social media, and I've kind of used that. So I worked for Fangoria for a little bit, the horror magazine, and now I work for Alamo Drafthouse and Mondo, and help with the marketing there.
So you can get us some exclusive posters, is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah, I'm the plug. I'm the poster plug. No, I've been a good boy. We're recording this, and last week was Comic-Con, so we had a big Comic-Con thing. And since I've been working for them, I haven't bought anything, I don't think, which is surprising. Like it's not video, but you can see behind me is Mondo stuff. Everywhere is Mondo stuff. But then I finally bought a new poster and a new toy this last weekend, so I bit the bullet again. But yeah,
which ones was it?
The dark side is pulling you.
It was we did a Logan poster, and I love Logan, and so I got the variant of that, which is has like metallic claws on it, which is cool. And then I had to, again, going with the Logan theme, I had to get, I don't know if y'all saw, the Toys team did an incredible job with Wolverine animated series from X-Men.
Right, the one
sitting on the bed. And I was like, I have to get it. Like, I have to do it. And so I'm very excited for that to come in because they did such a killer job with that.
Awesome. Well, that's good to know. I wasn't aware of that disconnection. So definitely looking forward now to keep in touch.
Yeah.
Very self-serving.
I need, I can't help that much, but I can.
You know.
Exactly. Bringing it back though, you mentioned you've been like a Star Wars fan all your life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that journey? Like, how did you get acquainted with it? I know a lot of us, like, we saw it or through our parents, or some people we've interviewed saw the prequels first. Like, what was your entry point into the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, I think I like to say, like, I think I was born at the perfect time to be a Star Wars fan, even more so than someone that like grew up in the 70s and could see it on the big screen, because I got to see it in 97 special editions. The first time I saw it, and I saw Star Wars Empire Jedi all within 3 months on a big screen when I was 5. And then I got to like be excited for the prequels all throughout, and then be excited for the sequels, and like kind of live like every saga as if it was like a brand new thing for me, and be at the correct age. And so yeah, special editions were the first thing. My dad took me, and then it was just kind of downhill from there. I feel like I kind of ruined my life in 1997, and then that was
that sounds eerily familiar somehow.
Yeah. The lifelong addiction begins.
Right, and you can't ever check it out, because even if you like say like, I'm done with Star Wars because this fandom sucks, it's kind of like, no, there's still, it's just kind of, a new movie comes out or a new something comes out, it's like, oh my god, it's like Al Pacino, right, in Godfather Part 3. Right when I thought it was out, they pulled me back in. Oh, it's impossible. So kind of like moving a little bit closer now into like Talking Bay 94. Was Talking Bay like your first like the first time you started podcasting, or were you podcasting before that, or like what was the story like to get into your channel?
Yeah, I'd never podcasted before Talking Bay, but I was co-running a website, like a pop culture website, with a buddy of mine, all based kind of like in Dallas, Texas pop culture, which wasn't really being tapped at all. And so we were doing that and going to conventions and interviewing people. I actually just saw, like, we interviewed Charles Soule like 5 years ago, like before he, so like that kind of thing. And it was right during Last Jedi, and I was just like in like Star Wars fever. And I was like, I wonder if there are Star Wars podcasts, because there used to be. When I was younger, I was very aware of some like Star Wars Action News and anyway. And so I knew there were some, so I was going to look into them, see how that's evolved over the years. And so there was an article on AV Club, I want to say, about like, if you like Star Wars minutia, you should listen to this episode of this podcast. And it was a Blast Points episode about the different sound mixes of A New Hope. And I was like, I listened to it and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever listened to in my entire life. And so that winter, when Last Jedi was coming out, I listened to probably like 50 or 60 Blast Points episodes just like in a row. And I was like, this is it. This is the best. And I texted my buddy, the guy I was running the website with. I was like, we should do a Star Wars podcast. And I just wanted to do something different and something that wasn't done. So I spent kind of that was my marketing side of my brain. I was like, hey, what's not happening? And there wasn't like a Mark Maron at the time, like Nerdist with Chris Hardwick, like one-on-one podcast interview show for Star Wars. And I was like, that would be pretty cool. And so from there, I knew a couple like managers and promoters, and I was Facebook friends with a couple Star Wars people, just because I was a person that I was like, oh, this person is on Facebook. And so I just kind of spent a couple months reaching out and building up a couple backlog, and then we launched when Solo came out. So it was about 6 months to like get it ready. And yeah, and it's been 100 something episodes now, and it's been really cool to kind of grow that and see it happen. So
interesting. I mean, congratulations. Yeah. Exactly. And it's good stuff. I mean, I there's some really cool interviews there that I really enjoyed listening to. So for sure, I think it's very valuable, right, for us as a community to not just be, talking to each other, but talking to these creators and kind of get that behind the scenes things. Because at least personally, I remember one of the things when I was growing up, one of the most exciting things for me after watching a movie in the theater was having the special edition DVDs come out with the 2 disc set and having all the special features there, and like seeing all those behind the scenes interviews with all those creators there. So that was a really like fun thing, like in late 90s, early 2000s, that I feel with the digital revolution and having all films like on Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these things is kind of lost in a way. Because I do know if you buy digital films through Apple or whatever, you still have access to the documentaries and everything, but it doesn't have that same visceral experience of kind of, popping that DVD and then turning on the documentary. Yeah. So there's really been a void, I feel, in that aspect of the community. So it's definitely something that's valuable, right? Because a lot of people just focus on the news and what's happening, and that's fine, but everyone does it, right? So we always kind of need that counterbalance of that, something that's missing and something that we wouldn't know otherwise. So definitely thank you for that. But I also wanted to ask, you were mentioning when you were trying to figure out the idea or the onus, right, of what Talking Bay was going to become, you were mentioning that you weren't finding a lot of podcasts, at least specifically for Star Wars, that were doing what you're doing now currently. So I have more of a global question, right, in terms of like what the Star Wars podcasting community feels like to you, especially now, because I was starting this like last year, and I was talking to a lot of the podcasters that we've talked to. Kind of feels like everyone has been starting around the same point, and it feels like that Last Jedi era is kind of the jumping point for a lot of people to get into podcasting, specifically Star Wars podcasting. I'm not saying that there wasn't anything before that, but it feels like a lot of the people that are big in the community like started out around the same time frame. Would you agree with that, or what's kind of your perception on the podcasting community, right?
Yeah, I think because there are people that were there before, and I think Force Awakens was a big kind of, if we're talking Star Wars, like a big shatter point as well, like kind of a point that like really sprung a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different people very excited about Star Wars again. And that joined like a legacy community of like, when I was growing up, it was the Force.net, it was rebelscum.com, and there were the message boards and stuff like that. And then as social media grew, it really kind of grew at the same time that the sequels were first starting. And that's wrong. I was on like making Star Wars and like Star Wars leaks on Reddit was just like huge. I remember, and that was kind of my first entry back into the Star Wars community, because I was like, Star Wars as an entity, and this is kind of spiraling a little bit, but Star Wars as an entity for a while, when there was no new movies between 2005 and let's say 2010, was very hyper focused on the fan. And StarWars.com had like a message boards, and you could build your own blog, and you could have your own articles, and like it was kind of like its own fostered community. And then they kind of shut that down over time. And then as podcasts really started to take hold with Force Awakens and like the lead up to that, and like all the questions and all the leaks and all the everything like that, I think that was the first big creation of a new community and a new kind of bunch of voices sprung out. And then from there, Last Jedi was very similar, and I loved seeing the people that came out of Last Jedi that had transformative fandom, right? I think that's something that's very important. It's like different viewpoints and different ways to be excited about Star Wars, and whether it's art or writing or podcasting or just like having fun online and meeting people and getting to talk about what you like about Star Wars and guessing what was going to happen in Episode 9. I think that was a very interesting way of it, like taking Star Wars and turning it into whatever you wanted it to. And Last Jedi really gave people that ownership in a different way. And then it was kind of disappointing not to see that happen with Episode 9, because I think it deflated people and not wanting to transform. And it's interesting now seeing the community with Mandalorian especially spring back in a very tangible way. And it's interesting seeing with Bad Batch, I'm not seeing that as much, which is interesting, but but there should be anyway. So that's the transformative aspects of the fandom are always very interesting to me, and what inspires that is always very interesting to kind of look at it globally and holistically, like you were saying. So Last Jedi is a very good example of that, though, of a lot of different voices coming in because they were so excited.
Interesting. You were mentioning, like, I mean, we'll get back a little bit to talking Bay, but you were mentioning you were mentioning some interesting trends, so to speak, on the podcasting community based on action reaction, right? First, Last Jedi versus Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, and then Mandalorian versus Bad Batch. How would you describe those changes, as you were saying, because you were mentioning that as the Mandalorian was kind of transformative and expanded the conversation, that you've seen it in a way contract, would you say, like with Bad Batch, same way as with Rise of Skywalker? How would you kind of compare what's happening?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, Rise of Skywalker is fine. Like, it's fine. And Bad Batch again is fine, and I'm really enjoying every week watching it. But I think Star Wars at its core is something that we can all kind of share and talk about. And it's very interesting because some things work very, very well, and some things don't work as well, and some things can really unite. And even Last Jedi, though, did the opposite of uniting, right? I think you can see a really clean break in Star Wars fandom, for better or for worse, of people that maybe were introduced with The Force Awakens and saw new themes or new things that they really loved, either carried through or not carried through with Last Jedi. And I think it's interesting now we're in a very similar situation as we were in 2005, like I was talking about earlier. When Revenge of the Sith happened, all that was really going on was Clone Wars, which until like season 3 or 4, no one was actually talking about. Like, there was no one actually like participating in that conversation. And it was very interesting finally when it didn't pick up pace, is the wrong word, but it started finding its fans and finding a community. And we're in a similar situation now with Bad Batch and with High Republic and all the Disney Plus elements coming out. It's a little bit tougher because it's not as global of a thing. There's not a new Star Wars movie in a theater and not a lot of people talking. And so it's up to the Star Wars community to build themselves up. And it's, I mean, up to like the four of us, for instance, like be positive is sometimes the wrong word, but being productive members, right? And like contributing to that conversation in a way that continues to tell the story. If things aren't hitting as much as they sometimes do, or there's not these tentpole events for us to talk around, right? So I think it's very interesting seeing, and I'm really enjoying a lot of the community finding new avenues to explore, since there's not like, oh, there's a bunch of leaks about this or whatever to talk about, or a bunch of new story points to discuss or new theories, and like trying to find new elements to discover, or old elements to kind of continue to mine, I think has been very enjoyable to see, just kind of like over the past even 6 months to a year of kind of new voices and new things to kind of mine within Star Wars.
Would you say that that now Bad Batch has had the reaction it's had because it's maybe an animated show, and that kind of has lowered the interest in having like as big as an interaction and a conversation as Mandalorian did?
I think it does limit it. Like, even as we were saying, like Maggie has watched, my wife has watched Clone Wars and Rebels, but it didn't really show interest in Bad Batch. But I remember, I mean, if we're even saying anime, though, I think it's interesting with Clone Wars, the new season last year, that was huge. Siege of Mandalore, I feel like everyone was talking about. Everyone was like, oh, this is crazy. And so I think it's a very interesting conversation to be had of like the relationship between a fan and what they're a fan of, and how you interact with it. Because like right now, like I'm reading all the High Republic stuff. I think it's great and fine, but like I'm not like making fan art for it, or and I think a lot of people are finding that. And so I think we were at a point in Star Wars where we were feeling like we were owed something. And I think that's what it comes down to, where it's like, oh, they didn't do this, and so I feel like they don't deserve my time. And I think now, as we get into this we're in this kind of period, which is probably the slowest Star Wars will ever be right now, right? Where we quote unquote just have Bad Batch and the High Republic, right? Which is crazy. I'm doing air quotes. We just have that, but we're about to have Disney Plus forever, right? We're about to have how many new shows and how many new movies, and Rogue Squadron and Taika Waititi and all these things coming down the pipeline. So right now, at this moment, it's really up to the fans to like be excited or not be excited or find things to be excited about. And so I think it's just very interesting looking at like how to approach being a fan of Star Wars right now. You can do it in 100 different ways. And I don't think there's a best way to do anything, but it is just kind of a Wild West right now. So it's pretty exciting.
Which is really interesting because, as you were mentioning with the High Republic, some people have really connected with it, especially like around the circles that we are in on Twitter specifically. Like a lot of people are really into the High Republic. I myself have really enjoyed the books and whatnot. And I think that's one of the important things, right, as fans to kind of take away from the fandom, right, that you're a part of, is like, how can you be positive and constructive about the thing you're enjoying? And because, you know, we've talked about it many an episode in the past. It's just like, if the thing that you're supposed to be enjoying and you're supposed to be a fan of is kind of all that you can do is just talk about how much you hate it or how much you don't like it, or then what is really the point? So I think that's also something that's very interesting, right, with like Star Wars podcasting and Star Wars social media and Star Wars YouTube, which is like how some people used to think of the narrative that they try to give, right? And instead of like weaponizing being constructive or weaponizing being positive, it's just like all about weaponizing that negativity, which at the end it just harms Star Wars itself and harms the creators. Just like it happened, I think, with like Ray Carson, right, when she was writing the Rise of Skywalker novelization, and all the vitriol that she got online from her trying to, you know, jump through hoops to try to make that novelization be harmonious to The Last Jedi and everything else. And it's kind of the lesson that at least I got from this, that if fans are gonna not attach themselves to what makes them happy and just attach themselves to what makes them angry, and they take that out on those creators, then those creators ultimately won't want to create anymore. So it's like, who's going to be left, right, to kind of make the Star Wars that we want to have and enjoy?
Definitely. Yeah, it's tough, right? Because you do see what gets the most views or the most clicks or the most listens, and it is the negativity. And so it's easy to say like, oh, like just be positive and that's how you combat it. And I don't think that's the answer, because I think you said like weaponized positivity is also a big problem. And I think it's about finding joy in the things that you enjoy. And so again, like I've told the story before, but I was on a completely different, it was not a Star Wars podcast I was being interviewed on, but they knew that I like Star Wars. And he was like, well, we just rewatched all the Star Wars movies, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan and I have some hot takes. Do you want to hear them? And I was like, sure. This is a professional podcast. This is for like work. And I was like, okay. And he was like, okay, so we started with episode 4, and I'll have to say, like, you know, hasn't aged well, you know, kind of slow. I was kind of bored. And then episode 5, pretty slow until the final duel. And episode 6, I just don't like the Ewoks, so that, you know, kind of sucks now. And then episode 1, of course, we know is really bad because of Jar Jar. And episode 2, just the worst. And episode 3, not good till the very end. And then episode 7 was fine. Episode 8 we hated, and then we didn't even watch episode 9. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I was like, I think it's like a Nico Victoria, right? It's like you keep using that word, I don't think you know what it means, right? Like, and so I think, again, like if you're not finding joy in something, then it's fine. Like you're allowed. You're allowed to not find. So anyway, I think it's a larger thing that people need to cope with, especially when so many of us have found identity in the things that we love, right? Like I'm looking at everyone's backgrounds, and we have obviously like made part of our lives this thing, right? Like whether it is Star Wars or any other like pop culture property, Marvel or DC or otherwise, it's very easy to be like, this is my identity, or a big part of it is me liking this thing. And so when things aren't necessarily what you're expecting or what you're enjoying, and all of a sudden you're like, well, that's part of me and I'm not enjoying this part of me, then you do have a choice to make. Is like, do I be transformative and productive? Do I completely let go, or do I become negative and sordid and kind of withdrawn, but at the same time still contributing to a discourse that maybe I'm not actually like enjoying? Like, so I think, again, this is not what's happening right now with Bad Batch or High Republic, but it is kind of, I think, at the heart of Star Wars fandom right now, which are people needing to figure out like, oh, I don't like Star Wars, or I don't,
right.
or I don't want, I don't need to talk about something anyway. So I think being unique and finding your voice and enjoying what you're talking about, no matter what the fandom is very, very important. And it goes for Star Wars, it goes for anything. And yeah, I don't know. I forgot what the question was. It was like, why? When was the first time you watched Star Wars?
I don't know either, but that's good.
It's all Star Wars related. It's all good.
It is, yeah. But I think that's the crux of it, right? Is try to enjoy what you say to enjoy, because if it's not anymore, then you're just hurting yourself long term, right? If you're just gonna let that be consumed by the dark side, right, and all that negativity just really is like, what's the point? But kind of circling back into some positivity, right, that you try to bring everybody with Talking Bay 94. We were talking a little bit about Star Wars creators, and you did touch upon how you've gotten in touch with some of them, but you interviewed a lot of people, right, from like Andrew Booth to Paul Duncan, Gary Whitta, Dennis Muren. With Dennis Muren, kind of like the creme de la creme, right? Oscar winning is visual effects artist. So us as a podcast that wants to invite people and talk to people is something that we're very curious about. It's like, how do you get in touch with some of these big heavy hitters, and how do you convince them to get on your show? What's that process? I mean, from deciding who you want to interview to finally getting them on the show. How does that happen?
I can show you my Google Doc. I have a big Google Doc that let's say I've had, I think it's 115 episodes, but you times that by 5, I think, in the terms of the people that I've written down, the people that I've reached out to, the people that have said no, or the people I've never heard back from. And it's just like it's a big process, and it's pretty unwieldy sometimes, because I'll try to make it manageable within my work-life balance, right? Where I can still reach out and communicate and schedule and figure all that out while also, living and cooking.
Right.
And
paying the bills.
Yes. And so, but it really starts though with, and I see behind you, like the archives books, like behind the scenes books, documentaries, people on Twitter. I kind of just cull from everything that I see and first just make a list. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that person hasn't been talked to. I'd really like to talk to this person. And it comes from a personal interest more than anything most of the time. And I make that list first. And then I do have a few avenues of either past guests that might know them and can connect me because they had a good experience and we've kept in touch, or they have publicly available contact information or privately available contact information, some industry connection. There's a bunch of different avenues that I take, and then from there it's kind of like what y'all did, like introduction, sending that email, crossing your fingers, hoping for the best, and then communicating, and then the final product of being able to interview. And then the big thing that's been important for me has been a very, very curated editing style. And so with them especially, whatever guest I have, I cut out all their I mesh everything together, I move all their pieces around, and so when they listen back to it, they're always like, this is the best interview I've ever done. But they don't know that it's because I cut out every episode, let's say it's 45 minutes long, I've cut out another 20 minutes of just silence, or things that didn't make sense, or things that needed to be adjusted. And so the final product I'm very proud of, but then that helps again with past guests and getting new contacts, and kind of then establishing bonds with managers or producers or whatever it is that kind of help with repeat guests. Or you'll often hear at the end of the episode, if I'm excited to talk to somebody, it is because of someone else recommending me, which is always a very, very big honor. And so I always try to make sure to reflect that with the final product. So yeah, it is, long story short, a big Google Doc, which is a nice
because I haven't really checked your release schedule. Do you release them gonna be redundant here, right, on a schedule, or is it kind of more or less based on the availability of all these when you're able to schedule interviews is when you're able to release episodes, or do you try to keep it as constant as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I try to make it every week on Wednesday. as much as possible. But like we're discussing, like it is very hit or miss depending on like availability and if I'm able to schedule someone. So like right now, like we haven't had an episode in about a month. Part of that's taking off because of the wedding. Part of that though is like I've not had time for guests to reach out, and so I like to at least have a few backlogged. So I'll probably try to get like 5 or 6 more guests and then start releasing episodes again, just to see how long I can go week to week before I need to stop again. And I've probably done like 3 or 4 stops over the past 3 or 4 years, of just A, needing a break, and B, kind of needing to take a step back, look at the list, look at who I should be interviewing, who I should be talking to, who I should be trying for. And then it's always been a pretty good time for me to kind of reset, try new projects, reach out to new, PR teams or publishers or whatever it is, and start the process again. And so that's where we are right now. And so I'm interested to see every they're not seasons of Talking Bay, but every kind of you can
wave.
Kind of like, yeah, the wave. I like the wave of Talking Bay is always a little bit different every time that I've taken a break. So I'm interested to see what this next wave looks like and who ends up kind of like being the standouts of it.
Interesting. And now that we were use that term, right? Wave. I'm curious now, like through these waves, like is there, conscious or not, is there like a quote unquote era of Star Wars that you kind of like to focus on? Is there like, oh, this like now I'm just going to focus on like original trilogy creators, or now I'm going to focus more on publishing, or or prequel or sequel? Is there, or is it more kind of like it's all just one big thing, or how do you plan who you're going to interview in that sense?
Yeah, it's interesting because I tried to, at least when they're being published, vary it, right? So one week as an author, 1 week as a background alien, 1 week as a voice actor, 1 week as a VFX person, right? And kind of just vary it so that the feed is constant. So if you don't like the prequels or something, you can just skip a week and the next week will be someone from Mandalorian or something. But it is interesting, at least the chronological aspect of it, which is a little more behind the scenes, is a little more kind of like, if you look at my list, like, oh, here is everyone that he noticed during this documentary, and let's reach out to those people.
Right.
And here's, oh, if I'm interviewing this author from 1993, let me see what other books came out in that time. Let me just like do that as well. Right. So I'm kind of in that headspace, because after a while, like I will run out of names. Like, I don't know, like after a while, it also is like what's exciting to me. And even like right now, just to be transparent, like I'm looking at this list and there are some that are very exciting to me. And then I'm also just like what is left? Like who, there are like 5 people I still haven't interviewed and I really want to. And then after that, it's just kind of nice to like get to talk to people. But it is like, okay, what is this next step? Like what can I build towards? And so stuff like Star Wars Insider or working with publishers or getting to like kind of level up a little bit has been like a nice bolster just personally, so I can like find something new to get excited about, or find kind of a next spark of inspiration. But yeah, this wave is interesting because it's a kind of a combo of like voice actors and ILM people and Mandalorian people that can finally talk because they're not in season 3, right. And so that's always a spoiler for me. Like we had the armorer on, right? And we had Queel, the motion performer for Queel. And so I'm like, well, obviously both of them not in season 2 for a variety of reasons, right? Like, right. Otherwise they would not be talking to me. They would not be allowed to. So yeah, so it's kind of like figuring out what that next step is and what that next wave looks like.
And once you are able to kind of get in touch with them and like they agree, then what's that process of like, okay, I'm going to interview this person. How do you plan that interview? Like, how do you get the questions that you want? Is there like a research that you have to do on like not just the person, but the role, right, that they had in the movie or TV show? And do you have to, for some of these people, do you have to send them the questions beforehand and go through that round of editing? What's that process from, okay, the interview is scheduled to we're making the interview now?
Yeah, I make notes for everybody. And some are very, very intense. Like, for instance, Dennis Murin was a very intense, like, okay, let me like prepare for this interview and like be as ready as possible. And that's looking at old interviews and looking at old conversations, or looking through the books and watching things and kind of knowing, especially the people that have been interviewed a bunch, it's a fine line, an interesting balance between questions and answers that they're comfortable talking about,
Mhm.
and things that they don't like talking about, but then also trying to get something new out of them, because you don't want it just to be like the greatest hits show, which I've fallen,
Right.
I mean, especially early, falling trapped into that is very easy. You're like, oh, here are the 10 questions that I've always been asked about this person because they've made these 5 movies that are very popular, and these are the things that people ask, and it's a good story. And so like sometimes I would have led someone into that story, but then you're like, that's not really authentic, right? And so really we've gotten to a point that I'm very proud of, where it's a little more conversational. It's a little more, I really tried to start with everybody at the beginning of whatever impetus they had to get into their field, and then have them lead through it. And almost Star Wars has turned into not an afterthought, because if it's a 45-minute episode, 20 minutes of it are Star Wars, but 25 minutes of it are just straight up background, other projects that they're excited about, future projects they're excited about. That way they feel like they're not just like a Star Wars actor,
Right.
And that requires a lot of research on my end, especially if I'm not familiar with that work, or if I really want to delve into something they've said in the past. So yeah, it is a lot of preparation. And then especially if I'm working through a publisher, I'm working through a PR agent, I'm working through whatever that then requires the questions in advance, then there's a little bit of back and forth in terms of editing. But normally I know I'm not gonna be like, all right, let's talk about spoilers, or let's like I never try to gotcha or anything like that. And
or what about this feud with this actor?
Right, yeah, like, because I mean it's interesting, I'm not gonna like name channels or anything, but it's interesting seeing people interview that maybe haven't done as many, that are looking for the little scoop, the little like thing to make the title of the thing,
right,
or put on Star Wars Leaks or whatever it is. Yeah. And could Talk Bay 94 be a huge yes, like our biggest episode is still Timothy Zahn, which was one of our first ones, because someone on Star Wars Leaks listened to it and put up something about like Mara Jade, and he was like, this is what Mara Jade would do in new canon or something. And so like it just like blew up, and I was like, well, that's cool. Right. But also like that wasn't my like point. And so it's interesting walking that line of, okay, I want this to be like relevant, but at the same time not like making someone feel uncomfortable, or not like asking good questions, because I feel like that's more just like, well, like, have you heard about like Kathleen Kennedy like maybe getting fired from Lucasfilm? And you're like, okay, like what, like what is going on?
Right.
How do you actually like just like talk to someone as a person? And I think that's kind of where I go at the very start of things, and go from there.
That's great. Which kind of leads me to the next question, because obviously it's structured in a very personable way to get to know your interviewees in a deeper manner, right, than other people might be interviewing these same people. But in that sense, has there been any one of your interviews has been like particularly a standout in terms of like not just the answers, right, that you got from them, but maybe the exchange that you have with said person? Anyone comes to mind that you're like, yes, this was a particularly good interview?
I don't know about that. I will, because interviewing in person is such a different beast for me than interviewing over Zoom, over Skype, whatever. And so whenever I'm able to like actually like sit down with somebody and connect with them, even if it's brief, even without a convention, even if it's for like 15 minutes, those are the ones I really, really enjoy, just because I'm able to like really engage. Because sometimes like if a guest is going on like really long, I'll drift. I'll just kind of like wait for it to wrap and then ask the next question. I'm very guilty of that. But if I'm in person, I have to, lock eyes and like be good, and those are the ones that have to, be attentive to, and those are the ones that I also kind of like sit back and remember. And this is not a Star Wars one, but I really remember like I interviewed Paul Freeman, which is one of the only non-Star Wars interviews on the feed, but he played Belloc in Raiders, and I mean, Raiders is a perfect movie, and Belloc is a perfect villain. And it was so like being able to like lock in with his eyes, or like with Belloc's eyes. You're like, this is very intense, very cool. But he was so kind and so nice, and that's kind of the recurring theme, like of all these episodes. There's been no one that's been mean or rude or anything. A couple older guys maybe are a little jaded, but that's the extent of it. And so those are the ones that always stand out to me, especially as like people that bring a lot of joy and energy into the conversation. And oftentimes I find that when I do the in-person ones, especially. So I mean, there's not a lot, I can't like name them off the top of my head, but like there's a lot of like Michael Carter, Bib Fortuna, I remember really enjoying. Tim Rose, Admiral Akbar, like just being able to like talk to these people and interact with them. And even Lauren Peterson, I was able to do in person at Celebration Chicago, and I brought his book with him. I lugged it around with me, and we went through it page by page together, and he was like pointing at things and showing me like models and showing me what they did, and it was just like the best. And so again, anytime that I can like have a tangible like physical connection with someone, I think that's always one of the highlights.
Right, but I can imagine though that because at least personally for me, if I were to meet one of these people, it would take me kind of a minute to kind of shake off the holy crap, I'm talking to so and so. So like, is that a thing that kind of happens to you maybe at the beginning, but at this point, is it still something that happens to you where it's kind of like, oh crap, I'm talking to so person that I've always wanted to talk to that did the thing that I love. Is there like that like star-stricken moment that you have to shake off, or are you immune to it at this point?
It's more and more rare, which is both good and bad, right? Because there's an aspect where you're like, oh, I've lost, like by being professional, and I've done it now, Mondo, I've done it with horror movies, that you do it and you become a professional and you become behind the scenes of something, and you do lose a tiny bit of like being a fan, right? And it does change it for you, right? And like I know the people that run the marketing for different IPs, and like they do not enjoy it as much as we do, because they're not able to sit down and watch the new Spider-Man movie and they know everything's going to happen, right? You're like, well, that's it's a different, but you're getting it 2 years early, and you're part of the process and you're part of the conversation, and so you're able to find joy in a different way. And I think the same goes for interviewing people and getting to like, again, talk to them and meet with them, and not just like pay $50 for their autograph and walk away. And so I think it is dependent on the guest and on the person. Again, for instance, Dennis Muren, I was like very starstruck. And with Skype, especially with the older guys, I don't turn on the video unless they do. I don't want to like and most of the time I'm calling them anyway, just on their cell phone, but through Skype. But with Dennis Muren, I like logged in, I got ready, and then his video pops up and he's just like, hello, and like and I was like okay, whoa. Yeah, so that was a very
never seen you from this angle before.
And so that it's easy to get starstruck, especially for the behind the scenes people for me. And then like, for instance, if I am meeting someone at a convention, oftentimes if there is a live episode, it's because I have a good connection and a good relationship with their manager, with their agent. And so I'll often go through the line as a fan and like, not even like talk to them that much, just like get my autograph or whatever. And then like move off to the side, let the autograph dry, talk to the manager, be like, okay, let's find a good time. And then come back as if almost like that had never happened, that fan experience had never happened. And then and treat it almost like as a job and as a professional. And then obviously through especially early questions, I really tried to make sure that like I'm showing like a deeper knowledge, and so they can latch on easier, as opposed to being like, what was it like working with George Lucas, which is a question they get a lot, or like, what's Harrison Ford like? And you're like, okay, like you can screw all the way off,
right? Like, it's like, well, so like, you're supposed to ask me about me, not about some other person.
And so especially question wise, not being a fanboy is very important to me, of like you're saying, establishing like, oh, I'm not nervous or starstruck just based on the questions alone, and showing being prepared and like having notes and like having a professional setup, that kind of thing. I'm trying to think the last time I was like, because I mean, before Skype interviews, if I'm just sitting here ready, like I am nervous, but it is dependent on the person of like how nervous I am, right? So
awesome.
Interesting, because I mean, the next question, in a way, you already answered it. It was just like, if there had been, obviously without naming names, because we don't need to name names, but if there had been like any awkward interviews, or like any interviews that didn't go the way you were visualizing, right? That it was gonna go. But I think for the most part, you said that everything has been pretty positive and engaging.
Everyone's engaging. It's interesting. There are a few that I have heavily edited, whether because of me being awkward or because of them not responding well to a question or because they went on a tangent or a rant or whatever it was, and almost like me being protective of them. And also, again, like talking about discourse, like I'd rather not be like, this Star Wars creator, this Star Wars actor, this whatever has these thoughts about The Last Jedi or about whatever. And so I skirt away from that, and then honestly just like heavily edit. So yes, there are examples of that, published episodes, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell, because I'm like, all right, that is just for me to cringe through while I am editing, and then no one will ever know, and this person will be fine because it's an opinion. Like, it's not like, if someone said something actually vile, I would not publish an interview with them, right? But it's mostly just like, benign opinions about stuff, and you're like, yeah, it's fine, but like I don't need like a bunch of people riled up for no reason. So
in a way, you feel like a certain responsibility to curate their
a little bit. Yeah, just, I mean, a tiny bit. Just, and again, personal responsibility in the sense that I'm not trying to like burn bridges between like people I know are connections, or, you know, especially if it's old guard talking about new guard Star Wars stuff, and they're being like, they're like, we did better or whatever it is. Like, it's just never a avenue you want to walk down, or never something that, it doesn't make anyone look good or everyone feel good. And you're like, what's the point? Like, why not just like take out this 2 minutes and we'll be fine.
Right. And then you'll know deep down that you know it. No one else knows it,
yes,
but you know.
Brandon. And if you buy me a drink at Celebration, I will tell you. Yes, and that's it.
Watch out, Anaheim.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, we were talking about like your very, very, very good experience and your maybe let's call them awkward experience, but ultimately, right, there's something to you can learn right from all of these experiences. So I think what's one of the biggest things that you've been able to learn from talking to all of these amazing people?
Oh, I mean, in terms of like the biggest things I've been taking away is just how to communicate with people, because again, if you think about it, the past 3.5 years, 4 years, rapid fire talking to 115 different creative people in varying degrees, all from a blank slate, and having to immediately make a connection, having to immediately, you know, create something together, has been a very interesting challenge for me. And I've learned a lot from, I mean, every guest I've learned something from that I've like taken with me, whether it's directly related to my job or my work or my life, or just how to enjoy Star Wars. And I think the biggest thing from all of that, like we were talking about earlier, we're kind of skirting around, but like, I didn't super like The Rise of Skywalker, but I've interviewed a ton of people that worked on The Rise of Skywalker, and it has made me enjoy The Rise of Skywalker more, because I'm like, oh, there are talented people that work on every single thing that we consume, no matter what it is. And
no one wants to make a piece of crap. Yeah, everyone wants to make it.
We're gonna ruin Brandon's Star Wars fandom with this movie. No one said that. And so it's really helped me make Star Wars more personal and enjoy things more. The things that I enjoy at a much deeper level, and the things that maybe I don't connect with as much, I still enjoy, because someone that I have connected with, even for 30 minutes, spent 2 years working on it, 3 years working on it, or, you know, a hot day on set in a big costume, you know, just sweating their butt off just for a scene that later we were like, that was filler, or that was unnecessary. You're like, well, right. It's still cool. Like, I would still, you know. So I think that's kind of been my biggest takeaway is finding those elements, like we were saying near the top, like finding things to enjoy, even the things that maybe are not as enjoyable, but just because I am very, very lucky why I'm able to make a personal connection with a lot of that. So.
Right. And a lot of these people are super passionate people that like love what they're doing and are investing their time to do the best thing that they, in their mind, right at the time, it's like the best thing they can do. So to have, you know, I think this is one of the things that's kind of, not to circle back, right, against fandom, but it's something that kind of weighs on me sometimes. It's like people that are going out of their way to attack the creators, that all that they wanted to do was do something good for them, right? And then have them retort with like such negativity is so baffling. It's like, well, they didn't go out to hurt you. They just wanted to, the opposite, right? They wanted to give you something that you would love for the rest of your life. So just back up from them and just let them, do the next thing, and maybe the next thing will connect with you. But speaking of the next thing, do you have any? You were talking that you were like in the process of the next wave for Talking Bay, but beyond like getting more interesting people to interview, do you have any other like future plans or anything that you have on the docket that you want to do for your channel that you haven't maybe done in the past? Any new plans you can share with us for Talking Bay?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it goes back to, again, finding interest and spark and enjoyment just for me personally. And so especially with this new wave and just kind of experimenting, we're talking about like me really enjoying talking to Belloc. And so like I am reaching out to more and more indie guests, especially with the new movie coming out. I feel like the majority of people that listen to Talking Bay also like Indiana Jones, especially if it's a big enough name where like, oh yes, this person was, so that's a big thing. I was doing a Lord of the Rings initial reach out, like a whole separate channel. And then just pandemic and just like stuff, but then also Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan came out with their own show recently. And it's not an interview show. They're not doing like Mark Maron, but they have had Elijah Wood and Richard. They've had some people, and it kind of, the spaced out was there for a Lord of the Rings show like that kind of has dissolved a little bit. So I'm still like workshopping that. So we'll see. But yeah, right now it's really like indie on the main feed. And then really a lot of energy that I normally put into like guest reach out, I've been putting into reach out and pitches for Star Wars Insider recently. And so that's been very, very rewarding. And so there's a lot more coming in future months, which is very exciting. So that's it. Wave 4, wave 5 of Talking coming relatively soon, coming as soon as I get a few things edited. So
well, that's great. I think that sounds great, and so we'll definitely be that will definitely be on the lookout for that. So everyone should definitely be on the lookout for that. So I think that's kind of like concludes our like main question portion of the episode. Hopefully, like our interviewing process went a little smooth and. Obviously not as smooth maybe as yours.
Y'all are great. Hopefully I was a good guest. I'm never on this side of things, right? So it's always, I'm always like, okay, like, what would I want from a guest? Like what anyway? So hopefully I didn't mess up too bad.
Well, I think, and it's the same thing, right? That you just want to get something that's engaging, that it kind of keeps that conversation going. So we've definitely gotten that today. So thank you so much. So we wanted to kind of like keep the conversation going. And now that you were mentioning a little bit of the Indiana Jones thing, why don't we kind of talk a little bit about your expectations there on Indy 5? Because I know, and we're also big Indy fans, and after Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I did join the bandwagon back in the day and say like this movie sucks, but now now I've come around. It's like, hey, it's not that bad. It's got some good moments. Maybe don't show the interdimensional beings, and the movie would have been better. But it's got some genuinely good moments, and I actually do enjoy Indy 4. So what are your thoughts now, right, for Indy 5, especially that Steven Spielberg isn't going to be involved? Yeah. He is going to be a producer. I don't know what the extent of that is, because, producer is a very ambiguous word, I think, in my mind anyway. And George isn't involved as far as I know, is he?
No, I think, I don't think he's on set. But I'm sure he was involved in some story pitch or something like that. I do. Again, going back to the larger question, I'm very, very excited for Indy 5. I really do love Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for all of its warts, especially, again, it's a little bit of the time frame it came out where it was like, I was, I don't know, a teenager, very excited. And so I walked out of that movie being like, this was great. And then I was immediately met with the discourse online, this movie is terrible. And so then I was like where I was like, oh, is this movie bad? I guess it is. And the same thing kind of happened with the prequels when I was younger. Like the prequels are bad. I'm like, I guess the prequels are worse than the original trilogy. But then you grow and you're like, wait a second. Like, no, like there are some kitschy things like Shia LaBeouf swinging on a vine, or like someone getting eaten by giant ants. But there's also kitschy things in Temple of Doom and Last Crusade. Like there's all elements of that. And it's fine. I saw, again, talking about like, I saw a take, someone was like, I only like Raiders. I don't like Temple of Doom. I don't like Last Crusade. I'm like, well, then I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you were 10 years old when you saw Raiders and then haven't liked anything since. You're not an Indiana Jones fan. Like, you can.
Yeah.
Like that one film.
You like a film that you liked when you were 10 years old. Like, congratulations. I have those as well, but I'm not like yelling about Toy Story. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, I'm not being like, there are people that do that. They're like, how dare they? Like, who's the new, like, Andy gave his toys to the new girl.
Right. To like,
and then on like at the Disney store now, apparently, or at Disney World, like on the foot of Woody and Buzz is the new girl's name, not Andy.
Oh,
everyone's like, how dare you? And I'm like,
are you serious? I did not know that this was a thing.
Yeah,
like I only just discovered about Spider-Man Twitter discourse, which I didn't know was a thing. It's just like, what's
Spider-Man's Twitter discourse? What's happening there?
Well, apparently, I mean, and I have tried. I'm gonna avoid even researching it, but like from what little I've seen, it's basically in a way an extension of the Fandom Menace, right? Where Fandom Menace is like hating on everything that isn't the original trilogy or whatever. Even though now they're apologists for the prequels, because generations isn't that funny how it works, right?
Yeah.
But Spider-Man's kind of the same thing, where it's just like they just hate any new Spider-Man thing that happens because it's not the OG Spider-Man stuff, which is like Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire and stuff.
Right.
And that's as far as like I'm aware, and I could be wrong in how I'm phrasing it.
You don't have to delve in more. Yeah, that's fine. You don't need to worry about that.
That seems like a rabbit hole that you don't want to go down.
It's just like it's enough with Star Wars fandom. I mean, it's enough. And we would put up with it because we love it, but I don't need more negativity.
You don't need more. It's
like I'm just I just want to watch the trailer for No Way Home. Is that too much to ask? Is that, please, Marvel, just drop the trailer.
I'm excited. It'll be anyway with Spider-Man. It's funny that you were going through a Twitter discourse because I was also like, oh, it's Spider-Man Day, I guess. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I've ever tweeted about Spider-Man, because like I've met different creators of Spider-Man. I was like, oh, that'd be like, I wonder if there's like a post I could tweet something. And really, the only things I ever found that I tweet about Spider-Man, besides me being like, oh, I love the new movies, or I loved like when he was in the Civil War trailer, was, and this is comics, but when Doc Ock took over Peter Parker's brain, people were like very upset. People were very upset. And I was there being like, it's fine, it's fun, it's a comic book. And everyone was like, Peter Parker's dead and Doc Ock is taking over. Oh my God, they're ruining Spider-Man. And this was like 10 years ago. And like, obviously it does not matter, right? We're talking about it now and you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. But at the time it was like me tweeting back at people being like, it's fine, because it had like blown up of like non-comic people like hearing about it and be like, they're ruining Spider-Man. And I'm like, it's a comic book. Like, it's just stupid.
They'll reboot it in like 2 years.
And they did. They rebooted it literally like 3 issues later. Anyway, read Superior Spider-Man. It's fine. That was my takeaway from Spider-Man Day today. I was like, oh, I remember that. And like, I met the creator and I got him to sign my book, and no one's talking about it anymore.
Right.
So with Indy 5, it's interesting because people do have that similar connection, just like with Spider-Man, just like with Star Wars. And it was a nice change of pace, because when the Raiders' 40th day happened, and like that week, I feel like I was just like, this is the best. Like, everyone was so excited and so like full of love for Indiana Jones in general. And I kept having to remind myself that the fandom has been marred by the reaction to Crystal Skull, and I'm worried that they're going to carry that into 5. But it almost is a blessing in disguise, where people, I think, have expectations that are a little more tempered than they might have been for Star Wars,
right?
Which is good. I hope they don't play. I hope sometimes with like Mandalorian, something, I'm like, oh, they're playing a little too far into other people's like expectations for what it should be, and I'm hoping. I really do like James Mangold. We just talked about Logan, actually. So it's funny you brought it up. I like him a lot. And I'm very excited. And like, just even his responses to people's complaints. And like, he was saying, like, oh, like Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall and Steven Spielberg have all been just like hanging out with me for like 6 months. Like, it's going to be fine. Like, he's not directing, but like, it's going to be fine, guys. And just the things that I've seen online and the pictures and just the time frame, like, I'm just excited. I'm just excited to see him back. Right. I love Indiana Jones. It's gonna be fun. Like, again, like, even if it is the same level of Crystal Skull, which I think it's probably gonna be better than Crystal Skull, it's gonna be worse than the original 3. It's gonna be somewhere in there. And it's gonna be fine. And there's a bunch of people that are gonna be upset about they don't even know her character, right? Phoebe Waller-Bridge or whatever. They don't know who she's playing. They're like, oh, she's going to be a feminist Indiana Jones, or they're ruining. You know, I'm like, oh my god, this is just like this is because I remember them doing the same exact thing with Cara Dune. With Gina Carano, they hated her. They're like, "Oh, the strong woman like beating up the Mandalorian." Are you kidding? And now,
I think it's interesting who hated her, and then who suddenly loved her.
Love her, right? Oh, that's weird.
It's interesting reversals here.
Yes. All that to be said, I think people are going to find things that they hate in Indiana Jones 5. I think, again, if you enjoy Indiana Jones, then you should hopefully just enjoy it being back in the conversation. Like Kingdom of Crystal Skull was so much fun because like there were toys again in Target, right? And like there were Burger King things, like, and people were talking about Indiana Jones, and like, this is fun, like this is great, and like we're back in that. And I think
it was so great because like I remember growing up watching Indiana Jones movies like on TNT or USA or whatever. They were, they were showing the movies. So I never got to see Indiana Jones in the big screen until Indy 4, and then it's like, oh crap, I can finally watch an Indiana Jones movie in the big screen.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we're gonna do that again with Harrison Ford, thankfully. So I mean, and the man's, I mean, he's doing well for an octogenarian, but
I'm very worried about him. Yeah.
But he's an octogenarian, so it's kind of like we kind of count our blessings where we got him. So it's like every role is kind of like we got it. We got one more,
and then we
don't know when's the next time.
Yeah, this is, I mean, you can't ask for anything else, and so I mean, I hope he doesn't die. I hope he doesn't
in the production.
Those are the two things I don't want, right? Although to be fair, like I did, like there are tweets, you can find tweets of me being like, at JJ Abrams, do not kill Han Solo, like I will cry. And it was fine. Like it was very sad, and it like I was about to throw up in the theater, but I think it was an interesting way to move the story forward for Star Wars, obviously, and Kylo Ren's story. And then with Blade Runner, I was very nervous they were going to kill Deckard in 2049. And sorry, spoilers, but he does not die.
Spoilers for like a 5-year-old movie.
And I thought that was beautiful as well. And so like Harrison Ford revisiting these old characters, it's very interesting for me to see kind of his approach to it, because he is very grumpy and very just like, hates everything.
Right.
But he loves Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is his favorite character he's ever played. And so he does take that very seriously. And we'll see. But anyway, that's a long answer to yes. Hell yes. Indiana Jones 5. Very exciting.
Yes, hell yes.
And it's going to be great. Like, it's going to be great. And I mean, I'm nervous about the discourse or whatever, but like, I'm going to enjoy, even if it's terrible, there's going to be moments of Indiana Jones punching somebody, like that. Yeah. I'm glad that we get to see that. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't get too woke and punches a Nazi. Oh my god.
They're really social justice message.
Who wants to see? Yeah, who wants to see Indian? God damn it.
Oh god.
But it's one of those things. Yeah, like Indiana Jones is gonna be great. It's gonna be fun. Just like the next Star Wars movie, if it's Rogue One or episode 10 or whatever, it's gonna be great. More of the things we love is better than just not. So that's one of the things that I really love about this whole publishing effort with Star Wars is like we get more. Even if you don't like it, then at some point something will come out that you do love. So it's always great to just have a lot of it, and just the more the merrier, and you'll just find something that fits into the thing that you enjoy in the way that you want to enjoy it.
Amen.
So I don't know if we had like anything else to like add, or anyone had any final thoughts, but I think we're kind of reaching the end here.
I kind of wanted to ask, because I went into your Twitter and stuff, and I see that you have journeys on eBay trying to acquire.
Yes, I do.
So I kind of want to know what's the best thing you think you have acquired.
So for those who don't know, me and eBay have a very tenuous relationship where I'm on it all the time. I have like 100 saved searches of varying degrees of specificity, and it really has ruined my life. But it is fun.
Or improved.
My wife would say,
from a certain point of view,
not improved, just based on shelf space and everything. But with eBay specifically, and it goes back to like why I love Talking Bay and why I love Star Wars, is like the behind the scenes elements and like feeling closer to Star Wars in ways that, because I collect Black Series and I love what they're creating for fans collectible wise, but then there is an element that I really do kind of seek out, which is like a little more like close to the primary source or a little more,
Mhm.
you know, so especially like crew worn stuff or production used things or storyboards or, you know, that thing. So that's been a whole kind of like spiral for me the past few years, and really the pandemic and being inside really kind of escalated that. And so yeah, I have a few like things I love getting, which are like Industrial Light and Magic crew shirts, and then like original art from like creators, and then like original posters from like original stuff, and then just like weird wacky stuff that like I'm like, ooh, I really want that. And so like, for instance, there is a wacky thing that I am the high bidder on right now. I will not say it because I don't want to jinx it, but we're 5 days away. But and I'm like, I was telling my wife, I was like, I've had this saved search for 3 years now, and I've never seen one go on sale. And I'm like, all right,
It's gonna happen.
I will. It's gonna happen, and I will spend. Like right now, the bid is not that bad, but the bid could get very bad. And I think the dumbest thing that I've bought, I'm looking at it, is because it's also I love searching like Lucasfilm and Skywalker Ranch, and I have a Skywalker Ranch butter dish. My butter dish is a Skywalker Ranch butter dish that I got on eBay.
Interesting.
It's great. It's very great. And it is carrying my butter right now. It's very nice. It's like ceramic hand painted thing that I can't put in the dishwasher. So that's probably the dumbest thing I bought.
Well, it's not dumb if it brings you happiness.
Joy.
So.
Brings you joy. Yeah, there we go.
Definitely.
Well, we'll definitely need to keep tabs on your Twitter to see if you achieve purchasing this.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it is after we stop recording too. I just don't because here's the secret though. And you went to my Twitter and you see me tweeting, "Don't let me buy this," right? Is what I say.
Yeah.
And I post a screenshot of an eBay listing. The secret is, and this is a secret just for y'all. Secret is I don't buy that. Like if I'm posting about it on eBay, it means I do not want it. It fits within the Talking Bay 94 brand or whatever it is. Like, oh yeah, like Brandon might buy that. Brandon's not buying that. Brandon's bidding on 6 other things secretly that he will not tweet about, because then someone's gonna, because I messed up one time where there was something I kind of wanted, and I was like, I should, and I tweeted, I was like, oh, should I buy this? And someone bought it before I bought it, and it was an Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular MGM Studios felt pennant. Beautiful. And it was like $40. I should have just bought it. Never seen one again. But someone bought it after I tweeted it, and I was like, okay.
Never again.
Now when I tweet now, know that it's just my sloppy.
You find that person, you block them is what you got to do. Never again.
Whoever has it. No one ever tweeted about it. No, because someone I'm sure was like, like I can never post that I have this, because Brandon will be very upset. No, Brandon would just buy it off of them for double what they paid. But yeah, so that's the secret. If I tweet, "Don't let me buy this," I'm not buying it. But I do have a bunch of secret stuff that I am bidding on. So
interesting. That's we'll definitely keep an eye out.
That's some marketing.
Yeah, there we go. Right.
Yeah.
It's misdirection. It's like
bait and switch.
This,
right.
I'm showing a Star Wars thing, but it's really an Indiana Jones thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I've had some. I haven't dipped my toe into the eBay pool that much, but there have been some things that I'm just like, I gotta do it. It's like a couple of like SDCC like Comic-Con books that's just like, well, I can't go to San Diego, and I need that book because I need to have the special edition, because I can't have the regular edition.
It's what the plebeians have. It's the
exactly
have the regular. They can buy the
exactly. This is only filet mignon in this podcast. It's only the top of the top.
Yeah.
Adults spending a bunch of money on toys.
Hey, that's the dream.
What's the point of working and making money if you can't spend it on things you couldn't have when you were growing up?
I know. That's the thing. It's like, especially because we're talking Black Series, and I see it behind you, which is the recarded big Black Series toys. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Got that in Orlando.
Yeah, and that one's incredible. And they've been doing it now, and I held off because they did that for the Star Wars and maybe Empire. They did the big cards, and then they were like, "Oh, Lucasfilm 50th. We're also going to do Power of the Force 2 and the original Phantom Menace cards." And I was like, "Okay, crap." crap.
Read.
Well, I will buy all of these.
Which I used to have growing up. I used to have
exactly. It's like,
oh,
I had this toy. Now it's big.
Yeah.
And shiny.
I need it. Yeah,
because you can't really see that's holographic, right? Like it's a shiny back, I want to say, right? It's a little
it has like the shiny in the back, and it's like the 40-year anniversary.
Yeah, they make it shiny, and I'm like, all right, I'll buy that. Yep,
I need it. It's shiny. I need it. Oh.
Yeah. So yes, I try to be good about not buying too many Black Series unless it's something weird.
It's difficult
or these
because they're
big
good
cards. Yeah, and then I don't open it though, because the cards are what I'm buying it for, and then I'm like, oh, like I have these toys now that like I'm in the process of moving, and I put them all in boxes, and I was like, ooh, like not great. Like this is like you have to pack them all very carefully because they're all in the box already, right? And can't get dented. And,
no.
Anyway.
Because otherwise you can't sell them on eBay, right?
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, well, because I always joke. I'm always like, oh, like this is an investment. Like this is actually worth this amount. And the response I've always gotten since I was growing up, and now with my wife, she's like, well, you're not going to sell it, so like it's not.
Exactly. You're not getting a return.
but jokes on everyone. I do try to like, especially Star Wars is a little bit different with comic books. I do try to like whatever I spend on comic books, I try to sell, if that makes sense. Like I'll buy.
So you break even.
Yeah, like I'll buy like 5 books, and I know one of them is actually worth a lot more, and so I'll wait a little bit and I'll sell that one. And so it's all coming out in the wash. It's all working out. Star Wars does a little different because I really don't sell that much.
Interesting.
See, that's a lot easier to. Yeah,
there's a process to the madness.
There's a method. Yeah. I mean, seeing as that's, I mean, I sympathize because in a way, like I have a similar problem because like I get all those things and thinking that it's going to accrue value because I'm like, well, no, because then I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it signed. Once it's signed, it's going to have that much more value. But then and some of the things that I do get signed, I always want it to be personalized, but then that reduces the value in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it needs to be for me. So it's just like, I'm defeating my own purpose in a way sometimes, but hey, but at least it's stuff that, that I like around me.
Right.
Obviously, you got to hide that stuff because sometimes you can't let people into my house and let them see all the things I actually like. The dangerous things of like, okay, what things do I put out and what things do I hide?
Right.
But I think we've had like a really great conversation. We really enjoyed our time with you. Thank you for being with us. But before we kind of wrap up, I think we give you a space to kind of tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find Talking Bay 94. So what are we'll leave links down in the description for everything, but you could tell everybody where you are so they can find you easily.
Talking Bay 94 you can find on any place you listen to your podcasts. TalkingBay94.com has a great kind of just all of them there, so you can kind of see what's going on. And then Twitter is the thing I update the most. Just Talking Bay 94 on Twitter. And if you want to see what I'm buying or not buying on eBay, let me know. And then it's like a side project, and now that I've been on Force Triad, you guys are into it, which is like, if there's something you're looking for or something that you collect, like a specific type of, I do slide into people's DMs with eBay links being like, you should buy this. It's a personalized like concierge service. A lot of different like Star Wars podcasters I've made spend $150, $100 over the past year because they're like, you got me, like this is it, like this is what I like. Talking Bay 94 on Twitter is where I really make the most damage. So
perfect. Well, you heard it there. You find him there. But if you, for some reason, forgot what he just said, we're going to leave the description down. The links in the description below so you can find it. But I think with that, that is a wrap for today's episode.
Yeah. Thank you, Brandon, who apparently corrupts all podcasters into spending more money. Thank you for that.
That's it. That's the dream. Thanks y'all for having me. This has been great.
Thank you so much for being with us and talking to us and sharing all of your experiences. It sounds really, really amazing. And we're complete amateurs, so I really hope we didn't screw up the interview. But we are Triad of the Force. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find us on Twitter, podcast, anywhere that podcast can be found, Instagram. We have merch, and leave us a comment, subscribe, and till next time, may the Force be with you.